You are all very welcome to the Diabetes Collaborative Clinical Trial Network launch, which is what we're going to be attending to over the next few hours. And to get us underway, would you please welcome, talking about clinical trial networks and their role in promoting access for patients to clinical trials, Ms. Oonagh Ward. All yours, Oonagh.
Afternoon, everybody, and very many thanks to Fidelma and the team for inviting me to talk to you today about the important role that clinical trial networks have for patients. And I think it's very hard to match that video, and I think that really shows the evidence that patients really do benefit from clinical trials. I mean, over the last 2 days, you've heard so much about the HRB, so I won't really go back over who the HRB are. I'm going to assume you understand us, you know our role. But it really is just to touch on the importance of clinical trials. Again, over the last 2 days, it's been wonderful to hear that. So I'm speaking to the converted here. It's really easy to stand here and talk about clinical trials and how important they are. But they really are important. And good trials and high quality trials are really important. And trials that are relevant to patients and their needs. So having the patients involved in the design is really, really important. But trials have been recognised by the HRB as being strategically important, and we've invested in them. We have our own dedicated funding stream to support them, but we understand they're very complex studies. They work in a regulated environment, and they need lots and lots of supports to do that. So we've invested heavily in infrastructure. And when we talk about this infrastructure, we really mean the specialist expertise, the people, the different sets of expertise that you need to be able to conduct a trial. And I think we do have a graphic of what that ambition looks like now after 20 years of funding. But we started back in 2002 funding cancer and cancer trial network. And that was our first experience of a national network. Now, it was funded at a very different level to the current clinical trial networks, but we learned a lot from it. We learned a lot about the need to have that national, cohesive and collaborative approach to be able to do clinical trials. And over a series of strategic investments, it was 2014 by the time we realised the need to further that into other areas, not just cancer. And we had our first clinical trial networks call back in 2014. And in our infrastructure that we have, and that little wheel that Teresa would have presented on yesterday, that shows all the different infrastructures that we've invested in, from the clinical research facilities that are located in hospital sites but linked with universities to be able to conduct your trials. There's also cancer groups associated with that. We have our clinical trial networks, and now we have them in a number of different disease areas, and diabetes is one of them. And those clinical trial networks are a key component of that clinical trial infrastructure graphic that we show. They work on their own, yes, but they need all the other pieces of that jigsaw, which we used to have, but now we see it as a wheel and as a whole of everything integrated and working together. Because it is through that collaboration and partnerships that benefits and success come. So what are clinical trial networks? Well, we define them within the call that we put out for clinical trial networks as formal collaborations of all the actors that you need to be able to conduct clinical trials. And we acknowledge that there are many actors, from clinicians, healthcare professionals, the nurses, the data, and there's our infrastructure wheel that I was making reference to, methodologists, and patients. And healthy people as well to inform and engage in that. And it is really through that critical mass of expertise coming together can you develop a strategic approach to a particular disease area. And again, it's addressing the needs of those patients in that disease area. For what kind of trials do they need? Are they going to be relevant? Do they serve the needs? So therefore, these networks can come together and they can have strategic approaches, and also they can have a PPI plan. They can connect in with other infrastructures such as the PPI network and really engage those patients from the beginning, because we see it time and time again that having patients involved from the outset of a study in the design and in the delivery of the trial, that really is delivering success at the end and a true outcome that's relevant to the patient's needs. We also would see that working together is really important for these networks and for clinical trials. And we've changed our funding model so that networks are just focused in on networking and having that strategic approach, and they need to apply in for trials. And through the announcement today of the 12 DIFAs that was successful in the last round, we're really beginning to see the strength of these clinical trial networks, and people coming together to do trials is really proving to be successful. So, quite simply put, at a recent infrastructure conference, people described networks as very large webs to collect large flies. And I thought that was very simple but very small example of how working together and stretching yourself far, you can really take those opportunities for trial activities and have a real impact. So I think building on yesterday's thing, partnering for impact is something that the clinical trial networks do very well. So thank you.